Hello and welcome. My name is Teal. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to talk about some things that will help you price your photography. If you are just getting into business or you just have questions and you're not really sure what to do, I hope that these things help you come up with a good idea of what you should charge. The first one that I want to talk about is your CODB, which is your cost of doing business. You need to figure out what it costs you to run your business before you can ever know what to charge somebody. You need to figure in your websites, your galleries, your gas, your time, your everything. Any money that you spend for your business needs to be calculated so that you know where you're starting from, I guess. So for example, if your cost of doing business every month is $100, you need to make sure $100 is zero and you need to make at least that much, and then everything else you make on top of that is for you and the IRS. There are lots of calculators online of how to you can kind of plug in all your numbers and it'll show you what your cost of doing business is, and some of them will even break down what you should charge per session. It'll ask you how much you want to make in a year, and then it'll tell you how many sessions you need to do to make that at this price. It's kind of cool. I'll see if I can find one and I will link it in the description. After you figure out your cost of doing business and you are kind of like know that number really well, you need to decide how you're going to structure your session. You need to decide if it's going to be what they consider a shoot and burn, such as myself, where you just shoot a session and then you give them digital photos. There's no products, there's no nothing. Digital photos, print release, done. That's what I do. I like it. It's super short and sweet. I used to do products. I love products and I do offer products still. I just don't include them or like require anybody to buy them. That's not how they're going to get their pictures. If you don't want to be shoot and burn, there are plenty of people out there who do a flat session fee, and that includes your session. It's what they used to call a sitting fee. So that's always an option also. So just a flat rate. A lot of people do it pretty cheap. They'll do it, $100 or $200 for the sitting fee, and then they have to buy everything else. They have to buy digitals, they have to buy prints, they have to buy everything else. So in that instance, you would probably want to make sure that your cost of doing business, like make sure what you need to make from that session is what your sitting fee is. I don't necessarily like that. I think that's kind of an outdated method. I'm sure somebody will disagree with me. That's just, I didn't find anything like that to ever work for me. I've always included something with the session, even if it was a little bit. Like I used to not include all the digitals. I would include a few and they could buy more, but it's always been digitals for me. When I tried to do products, it just wasn't as lucrative, I guess. I'm not saying it can't be. I'm just giving you an example of, for me, that's not how it worked out. All right, you have figured out your cost of doing business and you have decided how you want to structure your sessions. Now, the next thing I would tell you to think about, and think about it good, is if you want to be a high-end photographer or if you want to be a budget photographer. And I do have to say, if you choose the budget photographer way, you might be stuck there for a little while. It's definitely a thing that I notice more and more. When you start low and you try to raise your prices, it's a little bit harder than starting higher and maybe lowering your prices if it's not going well. I was never one to start super low. I did a few pretty cheap ones right when I started, but I didn't set pricing. It wasn't like a known thing. I didn't go all in and like really bring it home with a low price. I pretty much started, it's still pretty low, I guess, but like around $350. Like I don't think I did a whole lot of sessions under $350. And that's just because I started my business and then I moved to a new state. So it kind of gave me the opportunity to start from scratch. And I'm like, hey, why not raise prices. Like, let's not do $75 sessions. Like, it didn't work out. People are more afraid that they're going to overprice themselves than underprice themselves. And I think that's kind of a weird way to think about it. They're afraid that if they price themselves too high, they are not going to get any business. But you have to think about this two different ways. If you have high prices and you're not getting business, you can still keep that high price and then maybe run a sale. So you are lowering your price, but it's not going to be a surprise to anyone when they come back to you and your price is high and you're not running a sale. They're not going to be surprised because they saw that number all along. So if they come back to you because they love their first photos, they're going to be more willing to pay you the higher price because it wasn't ever a surprise. When you start on the lower end, $100, $150, $200, you're going to climb. And what's going to happen is the people that had you, all these people that have loved you and that has spent time and money on you, even if it was $100, they cannot follow you up to the $400 and $500 bracket. Like, those are not going to be, they might be. There are some people there. I have some clients that have followed me the whole way. However, it's a longer process. It's a longer process to go from $100 up to $600 instead of just staying at $600 and maybe running a sale to kind of meet somewhere in the middle. Because again, that high price is not a surprise when you run a sale. The other way to think about pricing yourself on the higher end versus the lower end is working smarter and not harder. So you have 4 sessions booked. Okay, we'll go with 4. You have one every Saturday for the month. 4 in a month. If you charge $100 for these sessions, at the end of the month, your money that you have brought in is $400. If you charge $400 for one shoot, you have to shoot one shoot to make the same amount of money that you would have made in 4 shoots. You would have had to work 4 times as hard to make the same amount of money. So people who are saying that they are nervous to charge too much because they're afraid people won't book them, at that point it doesn't matter. For every 4 inquiries you get, if one person books you, you're golden. It's making the same amount of money. Okay, so let's recap. The first thing you need to figure out is your cost of doing business. The second thing you need to think about is what is going to be included in your sessions. If you include prints and things like that, you need to account for the cost of those prints, which usually somebody told me once that you should be multiplying the cost of a print by 4 to sell it for a profit. I don't know how true that is. I haven't really had that much success with prints. We already talked about that. Anywho, the last one is to, in my opinion, again, I might get flagged for it, but in my opinion, you should charge more than you think you're worth. Because it's easier that way. It's easier to lower things than it is to slowly have to bring things up. My opinion. It might not be that way for everyone. That's just how it was for me. I definitely didn't want this video to be about me telling you what to charge. That just doesn't seem right. Everybody is on their own path. Everybody lives in different places. I can definitely charge more here in Hawaii than I could in Oklahoma. So it's definitely a personal thing. I just wanted to give you tips and things to think about while you are trying to figure out your pricing. This is the first video I've done with anything to do with the business side of photography. So if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so that you can see the rest of my videos in the future. The business side of photography definitely makes me uncomfortable because I would hate for anybody to take what I say and like do it exactly. Just because something works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you, and that's the same with really anything that you do in life. So just take these tips with a grain of salt, and if you have any further questions at all, or if there's anything I can clarify a little more, I was trying to keep this video short. It seems like my long 20-minute videos don't do very well. So this is a short video. You're welcome. But if you have any other questions, I will happily answer them in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye.